Recorded live on the turf at Mad Lab Training Studio in Eldersburg, Maryland. This is the Time to Win podcast with Alex and Dan. Now let's get this podcast started.
Well, we've been at it for 10 episodes, Dan. How do you
10
feel?
episodes. I feel it only like we've been at it for 8.
I still have a lot of words inside me. And
I feel like 8 episodes young.
It's in him and it's got to come out, right?
It
All
does.
those words. So I've got some controversial statements to make today.
I'm surprised.
Something new and different.
You know?
Yeah. But you know, I was actually went back and looked at some of the old episodes that we've done, and you know, we subject our listeners to 40 minutes of agony before we start doing shout-outs. And there was one time that we did a shout-out right at the very beginning.
It was.
So I would really like to do some shout-outs this morning before we get started so that our less motivated listeners can say, oh, they said my name on the podcast, now I can hang up, or now I can go on and do other stuff.
I like to make them work for it.
Yeah, but some of the people that I know, they're not going to work for it, right? Like I was telling you about my...
All right, you go ahead.
I was telling you about my friend Sweet Valentine, right?
Yeah.
I was telling you about sweets this morning, and
Wake up.
I'm gonna. Okay, you heard it there. I didn't set that one up, Sweets.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Sweets.
wake up. Okay, so a couple other shout outs, right? I want to say hi to everybody over at the Glenny Sportsman's Club in Glenny, Michigan. Shout out to Yoda. The president of the Glenny Sportsman Club. Okay,
Are they all Detroit Lions fans over there?
You know, it's hard to say because
They better be.
Because like, if you want to know about Michigan, right, you hold up your hand, and that's Michigan, right? And down here somewhere is Detroit. Glenny is somewhere up here. Right?
In the upper, the UP?
They're not quite in the UP, right?
Okay.
The UP is sort of over here somewhere, I think, right? But yeah, they're up there at the top of the mitten, at the top of the index finger.
Okay.
So, yeah, Yoda calls it God's country. I don't know. I've been up there a couple times. I've seen a lot of God's country in the world, and I guess Glenny is just as good as any place.
I
right?
guess it's just as good as any place.
But we've got friends up there, so shout out to the Glenny Sportsman's Club. Shout out to What a Day Cafe. Wow, I was over there the other day. I had a cold nitro brew after hitting the turf at Mad Lab Performance.
Oh, yeah.
And I took Agent B over there for breakfast. We had a great time. So
She loves it over there?
yeah, she loves it. She loves it. So What a Day Cafe is awesome. Go there and get some. Okusak Print Communication. Mike, if you're listening,
Mike.
we love you. And we're shouting you out because if you have any media or advertising, any kind of print communications you need done at all, Mike is your guy over at Okusak. And last but not least on my shout-out list, Hector and the good people at Beer Bath.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Dog-friendly, deep ale list on tap. Everything's awesome over there. The kitchen is squared away. So we love Beer Bath, and they love us for that. How about you, Dan? What do you got to say today?
Well, you know, I got to shout out my friends at CNA Auto.
Right.
For sure. Adam over there does a great job, him and his team. Anything you got going on with your car, truck, whatever, Adam and his crew can take care of it. You want to take your truck to space, Adam will find a way. Is that true? Not sure. But I'll tell you what, it wouldn't be for lack of effort. You know?
Speaking of lack of effort, Dan, you know, here's what I want everyone to do. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button out there on our podcast. And if you hit subscribe, we will give you a shout out. In fact, we'll even give you a shout out without hitting the subscribe button. But we sure would love it if you subscribed, right? I think we've got 1 million plus views right now. And we've got, I don't know, many thousands of subscribers.
Many thousands.
There's not much space left, okay? So
I think the dial reset. So, like, if you see it on YouTube, it's reset after, like, 5
okay, it's like the odometer on your car, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so couple of controversial statements, right? And you don't need to answer any of these. The real zinger comes at the very last, and I'll give you the high sign for
All
that.
right,
Okay?
so I'll just listen. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
This cough, man.
Opinion: solar energy is overrated. Okay.
Okay.
And I am as liberal and as green and as woke as they come.
I know you are.
And but I am disappointed with solar energy, right? Because even on the very best day, it only works half the time, right? Because the sun goes down and it's nighttime, right? And I don't remember very many perfect days. Like, I lived in Florida for 3 years, and even in the Sunshine State, it wasn't sunny every day, all day long, right? So solar energy, great, it's free, I get it, but like the promise of solar energy, like the promise of electric vehicles, it hasn't quite come true for me yet. Okay?
But is the technology getting better?
Yes.
And then you would be like, well, do you get solar energy from overcast days? Because you still get radiation.
Yeah, you get some.
I feel like
You don't
I'm
get it
gonna
all.
sneeze
Okay, controversial statement number 2. Nothing good happens after 9 o'clock at night. Your producer Mike says false. only the good stuff.
I'm not answering these yet, right?
Only the good stuff happens after 9
Yeah, I
o'clock.
might
right?
switch that.
Okay, and the reason I say that is I've been involved in heavy industry for many years in my career, and during the day shift, everything always went smooth. Nothing good. We used to say nothing good happens after midnight, right? Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, Bhopal, Exxon Valdez. All of these things happen on the graveyard shift.
Well, if you're talking about like a heavy industry, I'd imagine that peak human performance does not happen at midnight.
Yeah.
And I would think that even if somebody calls themselves a night person, genetically, deep in their DNA, they are not like a midnight to 4 a.m. person, because that's not what human beings are.
Yeah.
So that would make sense.
Okay, so I had this funny thing happen to me once after midnight. I was working in the plant, in the facility, and my job was to monitor a reaction vessel. And every hour I would take down the readings and I would record them in the logbook. And the pressure on this thing was going up, right? Every hour or every 30 minutes when I would take my readings, the pressure was going up. And I knew there was a place where the pressure became too dangerous, but I didn't know how to fix it. So I called up my boss, and this was well after midnight. It was also on a Friday. So my boss, he wasn't in a real productive mood, right? He was asleep.
I'd imagine.
And he was probably drunk. But I called him up and I said, "Hey, Phil, the pressure's going up. I can't fix it. What do I do?" And he says, "Figure it out." And he hung up on me. And so, that's
how Chernobyl happened.
That's a whole nother story of self-reliance. But eventually I got the thing resolved. But the fact that Phil was like, "Figure it out," and then hung up on me, that was a pretty sorry moment in my life. It turned into a triumph, but it was tough.
I would say he must have known that you could do it.
I don't know, maybe. He had no reason to believe. But, like I was not like the superstar. I was a rookie, and
But in your head, maybe. But
Yeah.
maybe he saw some stuff and was like, oh, guy X, Y, and Z did it. Alex is actually better than those guys.
Yeah, that'd
Alex
be
is
like,
going to figure it out. And if he doesn't, maybe there was this safeguard that's going to ring on his phone.
Yeah.
Or like one of those like puppets going to come out of the jack-in-the-box, hit him with a hammer, wake him up, and then he goes and saves the world. Something
maybe.
like that.
I mean, this is like the story of Agent B. I had nothing going for me.
The
And she
origin
looked at-
story?
Yeah, the origin story.
Oh, right.
I had nothing going for me, and she looked at me and said, "Yeah, that's the one."
That was the argument versus good versus lucky.
Yeah, I got really lucky on that one. Maybe I was good. Maybe she saw the good in me. I don't know.
But that's what the argument was. Isn't Agent B, wouldn't you call her good?
I would certainly call her good.
Well, then I guess
I was actually thinking about this the other night. Those 3 a.m. thoughts. You get up at 3 a.m. For whatever reason, and you don't go back to sleep because your mind is going. You're like fully awake, and you've got the thoughts rolling. And I remember something someone said to me: the more I practice, the luckier I get. Right? Okay, and then like Gretzky used to say, I miss 100% of the shots I don't take. Right? So more shots on goal equals more goals. Right? You just brute force it, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I do know that the more I practice, the better I get. And maybe I call that luck. Maybe you call it awesome. I'm not sure. But
I would call it awesome.
But time in the slot works, right? The more time you spend on the dime, the more time you spend on point, the better you get, right?
Well,
And
it's time under task, time
that's what I'm looking for.
under. No. Time under tension. That's your hypertrophy model, Mike. That's why you're Monster Mike over there.
Producer Mike. One day we'll get him on camera. Yeah, have him as a special guest star.
I try to get him on camera all the time.
All right, so Dan, here's the zinger then, right? We talked a little bit about this earlier in the week, and this is the one that we really want to develop a little bit. We talked some weeks ago about labels and how labels. You apply a label to somebody and you put them in a slot, and then all discussion ends, right? You don't get to talk about their merits or their attributes. You assign the label and it's all over, right? And so we've got age groups that get labels, right? And like when I was in the professional merry-go-round, we used to talk about millennials and how lazy they were, and how they had nothing going for them, and they were like you couldn't trust them, and they didn't have work ethic, and then you could, I guess, what came after millennials, Gen Y. I think
Gen Z. No.
Yeah, and then Gen Z eventually came along, right? Or I think Gen Z is the youngest cohort, maybe.
I think you're right.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, because I don't use these labels very much, but this was something that I always objected to when I was in the biz. That somebody would say, these Gen Z people or these millennials, they don't know how to work, they don't want to work. And it seems like every generation has some sort of criticism about the younger generation.
It happens all the time.
And I don't buy it, Dan. I don't buy it at all.
Well, on this we agree.
Yeah.
And I feel very strongly about this.
Okay, run with it, Dan.
Okay, so one, I feel like a lot of the problems that people have with youth, or that youth has with both ways, right? Mm-hmm. So younger generation has with the older generation has with younger generation, is all the same stuff, right? It's all the same. I want to rebel because I don't like these rules, right? Somebody else is like, I don't understand why they're rebelling. These rules are in place for a good reason, right? I'm very comfortable where I'm at. I don't know why these people are disrupting something. I'm not comfortable where I'm at, so I'm going to disrupt everything around me, right? So it's just the same things human beings have been doing forever. And I think to think that one generation is much different than another is arrogant, because human beings and life forms don't evolve that fast anyway. So you can't be like, oh, in 30 years, human beings have changed so much. They haven't. They haven't really changed at all. Technology has changed. So the things that get argued about are different. Their exposure to some things are a little bit different. But again, that still just brings up the same issues that have been the same across time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like a new technology comes out, somebody that doesn't want to change, that maybe is in an older generation, hates it. Somebody in a younger generation doesn't know much else. It's new and exciting. They're also starting to develop around that thing. So they obviously are going to use it and then probably like it a lot more. Yeah. And then there's going to be an argument about that.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know. I just think it's a lot of the same. And I hate those kind of arguments.
Yeah, I know that when I was okay, so the label that gets thrown at me a lot is boomer. Okay, right? Like a baby boomer.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm young for a boomer. It kind of I came on 1961, so kind of puts me at the tail end of the boomers. But that's the title that I get hung with a lot when I was in the professional workplace, and people would say, "Oh yeah, too old to change, can't learn any new tricks, things like that." The rub goes both ways. But I found that when I was working with the kids, I was so reassured every time I'd sit down and work with these kids that the world was in good hands, right? Like
Yeah.
I felt super comfortable handing this off to the next generation. And the older generation has been calling for the end of the world for thousands of, like, all of written history.
Same thing. All the time.
Yeah.
It just looks a little bit different.
I would even challenge that, Dan. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe it looks a little bit different, like the clothes they wear are a little bit different, or the fads that they have, or the food that they eat.
It's the same thing you say, like, if you paint a pig, it's still a muddy-ass swine. Don't you say that, Mike?
All the time.
You can't put enough lipstick on that pig. It's still a pig, right?
Yeah, it's still a muddy-ass swine.
But I don't understand what the older generations. Well, actually, I think I do. I'll go ahead and throw a couple ideas out there. I think the younger generation is awesome. I was one once. I was one of them once. I was a greasy ass swine, or whatever, dirty ass swine,
Muddy.
and
Greasy, muddy, dirty, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it was, but I had the fire, and I think all kids today have the fire, and they want to get great at something. They want to change the world. There's things that are important to them. They are willing to work hard, but they're not. And I think this has been a classic issue. They're not willing to take it unchallenged. They're not willing to be spoon-fed a bunch of dogma or protocol or doctrine from the older generation.
And what does that cause? The older generation will say, these kids are lazy and they don't want to work.
Yeah.
When they're not incentivizing them, or they have parents that are really not doing anything to support their goals or whatever it is in any way. And then you create kids with insecurities. And then when those kids that have giant insecurities and never reach whatever potential they needed to reach, when they get older, they say the same stuff that was said to them. This generation is lazy. And then it's a vicious cycle. It's the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
It's not anything different.
Dan, I'm here to break that cycle, okay?
All right.
The kids are all right.
The kids are all right.
Yeah. And they are the future. They're gonna win. And what they need is not a bunch of baloney from the older generation. What they need is room to move. They need opportunities to make mistakes and learn from them. They need opportunities to be awesome. They need to be given some direction, but they also need to be wound up and turned loose.
Yes.
Okay? And, I feel very strongly about this. And, on some of our prior podcasts, I've been critical of people like Goggins and Jocko Willink because they say stuff like, people have no work ethic anymore. The kids are lazy. They say this stuff, and they use all manner of colorful language about it, and it's not helpful. They throw out these criticisms, but I don't feel like they're offering a lot of solutions. So, Jocko, I know you're listening to the podcast because you love to be challenged a little bit. So, come on here and let's talk about it. That's what I say. But I'll take that position to the grave with me. And
you'll die on that hill.
That's what I was going to say. That's a hill I'm willing to die on. The kids are all right. The future's in good hands. And our job as, the ones that, I don't know, have all the money, have all the control, have all the answers, have all the knowledge, our job is to do a clean handoff to the next generation, right? Whether it's our kids or the people that we're mentoring or the people that we're trying to be a good example to, we have got to make a clean handoff, okay?
But why would that handoff not happen more often?
I think people are scared. I think people covet power. I think people, people say knowledge is power, and if I give you any knowledge, I must be giving away my power. Your power is going to go away eventually, Dan. And one of the ongoing topics we have here is, well, gosh, I've never died yet. I have no reason to believe that I would. However, I am going to die someday. My mind is made up, Dan. I'm going to die someday, and I've got to make sure that handoff is clean if I want to make sure that there is a future.
What's the pyramid that has not the Maslow's, because I know that's the first thing we ever think about. That's the one with like the survival and food and all that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What's the one that maybe I just saw this in a workplace thing, but where the bottom is like the whole foundation of the pyramid is the first thing is trust.
I don't know that one.
Do you know what that is, Mike?
Oh, we got homework now.
Mike, look that up. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, you can, but
Wait, we got to get Susie Stats on that one.
Susie Stats.
Susie, hit us with
Susie
Stats. Whisper in the
Stat
microphone.
Boy, and then who's the one that Rogan has? Damn it, I forget his producer's name. He's always like, da-da-da. Look this up real quick.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mike's more of like the eye in the sky, the voice of God over there. Where was I going with? Oh, so I think that what happens is that because people, again, because they haven't like developed a good secureness in who they are, and then their relationship with other people, it's very difficult for them to trust. So they don't want to give up power because they don't trust that anything good's going to happen to that power. Not so much in society, but what's going to happen to them, because then they're always worried about what's going to happen to them.
Yeah.
And they're also worried about losing relevance in the world, which is a big issue as people start to age. You're like, I still want to be relevant. And they feel like if they lose some of their power, they'll just end up not relevant and forgotten.
Right.
and taken advantage of.
Okay. So this week, Mitch McConnell announced he was going to step down Senate Majority Leadership. Right.
Yeah.
Great move. Okay, Senator McConnell, the writing was on the wall, dude.
You should have done that when you started, but that's all right.
Yeah,
It's a whole different thing.
Who's next? Pelosi. Okay, right. I'm a liberal. I'm a Democrat. Nancy Pelosi did a great job for years. Tough as nails, smart as a whip. Great leader. Okay, but at some point you'll lose that capability. Dianne Feinstein, legend in politics, right?
Yeah.
Got too old to be relevant. Her health was getting in the way of things. She was not able to lead the way she used to. Yeah, Dan, I hope that when I get old, when I start to lose that relevance, I hope you or somebody else comes to me and says, you need to take another step to the side. Right?
It'll probably be Mike saying it to both of us. Because Mike truly is actually immortal. Unlike me or you, maybe.
Mike is like, hey, you guys.
Mike's just going to replace us on this podcast.
Yeah,
slowly.
hey, you guys aren't really making sense anymore.
One day, you and I are going to be just like, people are going to be sitting here, and we're going to be like mopping back there. And we're going to be like, wait a minute, how did this happen?
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this for a long time because for some reason, some inexplicable reason, I keep getting older, and I was thinking about what is my relevance, what is my usefulness, what is my role. And yeah, I can't remember if I was talking to you about this or not, but I feel like I spent decades being a hero, right? Like making that diving catch at work, staying up late with my kids.
Figuring it out on a Friday.
Right? And man, there were so many nights my friend David and I we'd be sitting at the office 7:30 on a Friday evening. Everybody else had left, and we were still there, like pencil sharp, going a million miles an hour and grinding stuff out. But yeah, that was heroics, right? And that's what the business required. And then I retired, okay? And what happens when you've spent all of your life being a hero? You become something else, right? And we're always going through these transitions, right? You start as a newborn, then you learn to walk, right? And then you learn to talk, and then you learn to think, and then you learn to do. And we're always going through these transitions, right? Like I rolled into Mad Lab this morning, I was crippled, right? I'm going through a transition where I'm not as physically capable.
What did you say? Factory reset, Dan.
Yeah, I saw you in the parking lot, and I was crippled, right? I was like, Dan,
First thing this morning, factory reset, Dan.
We need to hit the factory reset button because Alex is hurt.
Sorry, everyone.
But there's that transition, and everyone's always going through a transition, and I think a lot of people don't get that. I think a lot of people go through life saying, it is going to be like this forever, and I'm going to put all of my effort into preserving it just the way it is, right? That's actually never really been a problem for me. I've always been willing to disrupt myself.
Well, I think it goes into disruption, exactly what goes into it. But I think it's a bunch of factors. It comes to that trust versus insecurity factor. Mm-hmm. It comes to have you not only had growth in your life, but have you pursued growth, and can you regularly do that? Yeah. Are you okay with being uncomfortable?
Yeah.
And do you understand what your strengths and weaknesses are?
Yeah.
If all of those things are checked, then you are going to, as they say, age gracefully, right? Because then you're going to transition into the periods of life probably pretty happy, and a lot of times happier than you were in the last transition because you're growing and you're improving, and you're finding more of a stable place.
Yeah.
Right? But if you don't check those boxes, it's going to be a nightmare filled with fear because, one, you're not going to be secure with yourself, so you're going to constantly doubt yourself. Two, you're not going to trust those around you, so you're going to constantly think you're about to be taken advantage of, and every change is going to go into a dark place. Mm-hmm. And then three, I can't remember what I was going to say, but I'll tell you this, Mike. It was going to be excellent. What are the three that I just said? I don't know.
Trust,
I lost it.
comfort.
Trust, comfort. I would say also what you're even supposed to be doing. So then it just makes you hold on to whatever you know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So then you're not willing to let that go because, I know what it is. I'm sorry. Human beings' fear of the unknown. right? Because then you don't understand any of those things. You're just constantly fearful of those around you and like whatever change is going to happen. And then whatever change is about to happen, you've never done before. So you add that factor of unknown and it becomes crippling. And then people do some wild stuff, which you see even crazier with those in power that have a lot of resources.
Right. Wow, that's some deep stuff, Dan. I don't know. I hope everybody has their pencils out and they're taking notes.
Yeah, and your abacus. Might want to do a little calculations, Mikey.
So the thing is, though, to face the unknown, right? To get out of the comfort zone.
Rogan's producer's name is Jamie.
Okay.
Boy Jamie.
Okay, so Rogan has like the most popular podcast ever, right? I mean,
yeah, that's why we're second.
Yeah.
It's just the truth, you know?
I have never listened to Rogan's podcast, ever. I haven't.
Really?
Not a single episode.
It's a great interviewer.
Yeah, okay. Okay. What is Rogan going to do next?
I think he just constantly does what he wants. And so, like, I think one of his big things that he talks about, and I always like that he's trying to do something all the time, right? So he has a stand-up. No offense, Rogan. I think you're amazing at a lot of things. I'm not big on his stand-up. But what he does do is he loves comedy, and he's started a club because he moved from, I think he was in L.A. or he was in somewhere in California, moved to Austin because he didn't like what was happening in California, moved to Austin, and then he started a comedy club there. And then he just invites new, like, promising comedians in and, like, helps them, like, gives them resources, like, because he understands what it's like to be, like, a broke new comedian and how hard it is.
Yeah.
So he gives these guys resources and help and all this stuff to be able to, like, help them elevate their careers.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of his big passion projects, and I think that's commendable and really cool.
So you said you don't really think he's that funny, like as a stand-up? Well, you didn't say it's not that funny. You just said you don't like him
as a stand-up,
yeah.
I think he's funny in his interviews just because like you'll have moments where you'll laugh at it because he's genuine, right? Yeah. Genuine, not genuine like pony. So he's genuine with the things that he says, and then also how hilarious he thinks some of his guests are. Like he'll have some repeated guests on, and it's great when they come on because you go, I know Joe thinks that this guy's hilarious, and you'll just hear him start cracking up, and then you'll start cracking up because he's cracking up. So I think that's cool. So I think he does a lot of things like really, really well, but just not the stand-up.
So think of the great creative geniuses that are out there. Okay, Rogan. Right?
Okay.
He's creative. I'll call him a creative genius for sake of argument, okay?
The longest one I can think of is what, like Da Vinci?
Yeah.
That's a big creative genius.
Yeah, but I'm talking about guys that are active now, right?
He's probably not alive. I think.
Don't go there.
I won't go there. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. But, all right, creative geniuses now.
Right, like, okay, so...
Who's a big director that's, like, very creative?
I don't know, Ridley Scott, Steven Spielberg.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
Right? I don't know, like musical artists, right? But the people that are great creative geniuses, they realize that it's not endless and it's not always on demand. So what do? They help other people become geniuses too, or leverage their genius, right? So some of the great creative people are also, like in music, for example,
which
they're
is
producers,
that transition
right?
that I feel like makes you even happier.
That's
right?
what I'm talking about.
Because I'll tell you this, like I do enjoy training, like I love training, but then as I start to train trainers and see them be more successful, that's infinitely more rewarding to me. But a good trainer that's popular is like the all-star, right? That is like if you're playing on a team, like that's if you're playing football, like that's your star quarterback, right? And then you kind of move on to more of like a coaching or GM position. But to me, as much as I liked being that at places and stuff before, it's infinitely more rewarding and more fun. Plus, you have more time to enjoy your life, too, a lot of times, to do that. And I think that more people need to think that way. And I think when they do, it's amazing.
You know, Dan, so, you know, we started off by talking about labels. And, I was condemning boomers for criticizing millennials, right?
Right.
Okay. But, labels, they're still useful. Okay, so
yeah, they are.
They're useful for
categorizing,
establishing your
sorting,
identity,
and organizing stuff.
Yeah. They are important. Okay, so if you were to label yourself, for example, you wouldn't just say, "Hi, I'm Dan the trainer."
I would not say that.
You could say, "I'm Dan the trainer of trainers. I'm Dan the podcaster. I'm Dan the father. I'm Dan the bartender. I'm Dan, this and that and the
I would
dungeon
say
master."
Dan, equal parts hero and fool.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
I'd say there's actually more to you than just those two, right?
All
and,
right.
And I think that's the thing. A lot of people don't look at themselves and ask the question, "Who am I? What is my role? What is it that I do in this world?" Right? Okay.
So that is a very good point.
Right. And I think that's where we start running into problems, right? It's super easy to label something that you see as one-dimensional. It's very hard to put a label on something that is multidimensional. And by that, I don't mean weird sci-fi stuff. What I
No,
mean
but
is like,
multidimensional is like literally every human being.
yeah, they
Yeah.
are. They are. But I think a lot of people...
Maybe multifaceted.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people self-identify as one thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm a conservative. I'm a liberal. I'm a man.
Which puts you in dangerous territory because then you stop thinking in gray areas and you just think in black and white, right? Because if you're liberal and that's what you call yourself, then everything conservative, you're like, F that.
Yeah.
If you're conservative, it goes back the other way.
Right.
And then that causes all sorts of issues because, I mean, especially stuff like that, like politics is a made-up thing. It's a man-made thing
Yeah.
with not finite lines
Right.
in any way. And then you also have people that are in politics that don't play by the finite lines in any way but are very self-serving. So it's, it's a tough, that's a tough thing to hang your hat on. Same thing with jobs, right? You're whoever the banker and you work for like M&T Bank or Bank of America and you've been there for 20 years and then you get fired. Now who are you?
Right, and
that's a problem. 100%. And you know who really struggles with
I can't
this?
believe we both said that at the same time.
We
That's
did.
a problem.
We're finishing each other's sentences. The one that really drives me nuts that I think they've taken advantage of and don't get a lot of support this way, even though it's really slowly starting to get better and more recognized, is military.
Okay.
Right? Military you get deployed somewhere. You've been in like on and off of deployments for like 10, 12, 15, 20 years. And then you come home, you retire. And sometimes you're forced to retire medically. Like something happens to you out on the field and stuff, like whatever happens. And then you're supposed to become from all of that combat zone. You had your guys, like had everything going on. And then you're here with a list of weird rules of society that did not ever pertain to you before.
That's right. Especially the guys that were in combat roles.
Yes,
in
that's
the
a big
military.
one. The combat roles is like
Yeah.
the biggest one to
Right.
me. Because then you're like, because that's just vastly different from what you're expected to be in society. So,
And so this is one of the things they don't teach you, and they don't teach you to teach your kids these things, right?
No.
Like, you're not just a soldier, Dan. You are a person that has a lot of things. You're a leader. You're a problem solver. You are
a problem.
Hey Dan,
Problemo.
Dan, one piece of advice I want to give you. Just a footnote to this conversation. Don't be part of the problem, Dan. Be all the problem.
Be all of the problem. Believe me, I've taken
speak
that
up to your
advice many
potential.
times in my life.
Speaking of problems, is there any more shout outs you want to do?
Trying to think of things that
And while you're thinking of that, is it the Lencioni Trust Pyramid you were talking about?
Linsanity.
Well, that's different.
No, the Lincia maybe. I think it's. I have no idea what it's called. What's the thing? What is the things I can tell you?
Because it has, you said trust at the bottom of the
Yeah.
pyramid. From the bottom up, trust, conflict, commitment, accountability,
Yes.
results.
Yes, 100% that.
This is
Nice.
talking about
Yeah.
a cohesive team versus a dysfunctional team.
Yes, that's what it is. Yeah. Hey, what's it called?
Lencioni, Lencioni?
Linsanity.
Okay, we'll call it that.
The pyramid of Linsanity.
It sounds like
Yeah.
a Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
It does sound like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Speaking of that, being a dungeon master is tough.
Wait a second. Is that another one of your roles? Another one of your identities?
That is another one of my identities.
See that? Okay, so we'll come back to dungeon mastering, but I like that, Dan, because you are one of the things I love about you is that you're not one thing. You're a lot of things. You're a complicated guy.
Sometimes I like that about
Yeah.
myself. Sometimes I do.
I know. But
Yeah.
but that makes you more capable of pivoting. It makes you more capable of interpreting the data that you're being given. It makes you more capable of transitioning into situations that you're not familiar with, because you have this wealth of experience that you can start drawing on, and you can
Thanks,
say,
Alex.
I
I appreciate that.
don't know quite what I'm looking at, but it feels like something I've done before, right? And
That's true.
And that's one of those things they don't teach you. They don't teach you as a kid. They don't teach you as a parent to try and create opportunities and experiences so that your people are better equipped to understand and interpret the world around them and to react with it in a positive way. They don't teach you that. They say, go to school, be successful, follow the rules, and things will generally turn out okay. And I think that's balderdash.
It is 100%, because that's like what happened to me my whole life. And I was terrible at formal school, went through all this stuff to try to get through formal schooling. I got out, and then I got nothing because of it.
Yeah.
At all. I mean, not nothing. I mean, the process helps.
I mean, you learn how to
whatever,
read,
whatever.
right?
But like, as far as like the system was set up, it wasn't trying to do that for me.
Right.
It just, what it was trying to do for me utterly failed. And I see that happen in a lot of places. That is well said, actually.
I'm glad we caught it on tape, because I could not repeat that, right?
Yeah, that was really good. That sounded like
But
the
you know,
writings of Alex.
it's-
It should be on a tablet somewhere, I think.
it's part of the time to win protocol.
Time to
right?
win protocol.
No,
Break
no.
it out.
Yeah.
Like it's in a glass case.
Yeah, whip
Yeah.
out the protocol. But we don't do that, right? And like these kids that come from combat roles, and their deployment is over, their enlistment is up, they're not re-upping, and they're being thrust into a world that they don't know how to interact with, right?
Yeah.
The military is simple. Combat roles are simple. Follow the orders, do what you're told, keep your weapon clean, and generally things are going to work out, right? There's a way of dealing with this stuff. But we don't teach people how to deal with stuff, right? We teach people follow the rules, okay? And that's one of the things I love about working with Gen Z and millennials and stuff. They do not want to follow my rules.
Yeah.
They don't want to obey. They want to understand. And I think that's to be rewarded and commended.
Which is what I think also should happen on whatever age group you belong to, right? You should constantly seek to work with other age groups.
Yes.
It's so important.
Yeah.
I don't have a choice here. So like I work with middle schoolers, and we have elementary schoolers come in. Little Nico is, how old do you think Nico is? Like 2?
Yeah.
Maybe? Yeah, so he's running around. He's 2, so you got to, get along with him. And then you have people that are like, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 in here as well. So you get perspectives from everywhere.
Right.
And then you need to know how to talk to all these different age groups, and I think that can only help you. And you're less likely to judge things harshly because you know so many people in specific age groups, and a lot of them that you love, too. So I think that is helpful. If you only have a few interactions with some youth and you barely have any rapport with them and all you see is some mistakes, then you're generally going to be like, well, F that generation.
Yeah.
They can't come on time. When really it's just like Sally from accounting or like Nemo from whatever else, sales. I was thinking about your Nemo thing the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that is what happens a lot of
Yeah,
times.
totally. If you hang out with your cohort, like the people that look like you and think like you
Yeah.
and talk like you, your swim lane is going to be so freaking narrow.
Yes.
that you're never going to you're only going to be able to do one thing in life. And when that one thing is taken from you, either by chance or by entropy or whatever, you're going to be left high and dry. You're going to be
And
left,
likely it's going to happen. Is the problem.
Yeah.
So-
Okay. That's a great point, Dan. I think it is absolutely going to happen. What you have today, you will not always have, and the more capable you are of dealing with that, the better. And so we talk about transitions, right? Like I told you, I spent all these decades being a hero, And what do I have to offer now that's relevant or useful to anybody? And the only thing that I come up with is I could, if nothing else, I could help you avoid the mistakes that I made. Right?
It's probably a big help.
Yeah, like I could be like the term I use is elder. It's maybe not the right term, but it's a person that has the benefit of experience and perspective, and that's something that you can offer to people, right? And man, I'm like you, Dan. I love hanging out with people that are not part of my cohort.
Yeah.
Because I learned so much from them. I learned, like, I come in here and say, what are we listening to today? And I'm like, absolutely one thing we are not going to listen to is classic rock from the 70s, okay? Ever. Because, hey, those songs were great the first 10,000 times I heard them. I'm done. I want something different.
That's
right?
fair. That's why I like when people play playlists in here, because otherwise, like, I just try to put on something really quick because I'm trying to do a million other things. And then generally, even though there might be like 5 or 6 playlists I'll play, it's still the same stuff I hear, and I don't want to just regularly hear that all the time.
Yeah. So that's what I want to do. I want to be an elder. Okay. I'm in that transition right now from hero to elder. Okay.
From hero to elder.
And maybe that sounds
from
like,
hero to elder and back again. That's the book.
I hope not. I don't want to go. Okay. So table that topic, hero and elder, because that sounds a little bit self-promoting. I don't know. I don't want to do that. But Brenda asked me, Agent B asked me the other day, if you could go back in time and live 3 weeks of your life, any place in your life, over again, what would you do? And
What's prompted that question?
She's reading a book.
Okay.
Part of a book club,
All right.
And I think the book was called The Summer House or The Beach House or something like that. And the premise is these people have an opportunity to go back and like do a redo.
With the information you have now?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Okay, that's especially important, and that's part of my answer. But if you want to work with that for a second, what do you think,
No,
Dan?
you go with your answer.
Okay. I didn't pause.
Wow.
I said I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
I wouldn't do it because I don't want.
Well, does it change stuff? Like, do you go back and
That's
do
the
it, and then it
problem.
changes the future?
That's the problem.
Ugh.
You don't know.
That's scary. Butterfly effect stuff.
Yeah, and I like every day that I wake up. You've heard me say this before, Dan. It's not bullshit. I really, really do believe this. It's the best day ever. Okay,
Best day ever.
I love waking up every morning because it's going to be awesome, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that the life I'm living right now is exactly the life I want.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is, and I can't imagine like having to suffer through the stuff I've already suffered through for no apparent reason. I hate the idea of like my future somehow being changed because I love where I'm at. You know, I would go. And everything that has happened to me in my life has been an input into what I am today. Right.
That's true.
So who I am is the sum of everything that I've done up to this point. And I don't want to go back and change that. I really, really like what I'm doing. I like who I am. I like where I'm at in life. And yeah, sure, there's stuff I regret doing. I've done all the infinite
Could have done
number
a
of
couple more
dumb,
RFPs or
stupid,
so.
mean, hurtful, spiteful, awful, illegal things that I've done in my life, right? I wouldn't change it. You know, the only thing that I would do is I'd ask if I had a chance in the future, which is an altogether different premise. Right?
Altogether different premise.
The one thing I would hope for the future is I could go back and apologize to anybody that I ever hurt. That's the only thing that I would change in my life. I wouldn't go back and change the stupid things that I've done, but I would like an opportunity to say I'm sorry. So, okay,
Jeez, what a hell of an answer.
Here you go. Here you go, everybody. You ready? I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all the mean, stupid, spiteful, hateful, ignorant, illegal things that I ever did. Okay, there it is. I said it to the world. Okay.
I'm sorry for the mean things that I ever did to anybody, for sure. I'm not sorry for any of the illegal stuff I did, unless it was mean. Laws are for other people, Alex.
Oh, man. I don't even know where to go with that one, Dan. You
Straight
struck
to the
me
top,
down.
baby.
You struck me down. All right, listen, guys. I am almost completely talked out today, Dan. I just okay. So I did a lot of like sort of vulnerable humiliating confessional sort of dialogue today. I apologize to the whole world for everything I did wrong. I gave the
You're
shout
absolved for all of your sins ever.
Yeah,
Alex.
man.
That's pretty
thank
good.
you. Going straight to the top,
Straight
baby.
to the top.
So I guess I'll just sum it up one more time by saying the kids are all right, and
The kids are all right.
yeah, and if you ever want some encouragement, kids, if you want to know like what not to do, or if you want some advice, just come on by the Performance Lab over here. Come over to the turf, get on the turf with us, and we'll help you out. We'll give you what we got. We'll give you everything we got.
Absolutely. And
All
you know
right.
why?
I don't know why.
Because it's time to win, Alex.
It is always time to win, Dan.
You're the man.
I'm nobody, Dan. I'm just some guy.
Thank you, guys.
Love you.